What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk on the huge amount of catalysts that's been coming out for SoFi. I also want to talk on the risks. Especially in this channel, I like to give the good, the bad, and the ugly. And right now we do have a good combination of both that I do want to discuss, especially leading into next week. But before I get into any of that, all I ask is smash a thumbs up, subscribe to all that fun stuff. If you are new to the channel, I do daily videos on trending stocks, crypto, I do it all. So make sure you do subscribe. Also take a look at my Discord, link in the description below. A lot of good people, a lot of good chat, and plus it's free, so definitely take a look. With that said, let's get right to it. So like I said, there has been a lot of good catalysts that's been coming out for SoFi. I'm going to talk more so about the risks, because when it comes down to risks, there is a lot of different things that is all affecting SoFi, one of which is shorts. So shorts been taking advantage of all the fear out there, and shorts have been increasing, and especially when it comes down to SoFi, there's been a lot of abnormal things. So right now on a day-by-day change, more so from Friday, it actually did go up 2.71%, which works out to be 6.68 million shares being additionally shorted. And I did do a video on this. This, hands down, is proof of manipulation. So this was from Friday. Cost to borrow minimum, it is actually negative. So what does that mean? That means actually there is brokers out there physically paying people to short SoFi. So that is a very big deal at the end of the day. Cost to borrow average though is 2.84%. And when it comes down to all these brokers that are ultimately charging these amounts for shorts, they all do have one common thing. SoFi is a threat to them. There's a huge potential when it comes to SoFi. Us as investors know that, and they do know that as well. So manipulation is starting to increase more and more, and a little bit more boldly as well when it comes to SoFi. So that's something to keep in mind, especially like I said, there is some risks I'm going to talk on for next week and the coming weeks that I do strongly feel shorts are going to take more advantage of. And as of right now, short interest is 1777, pretty much down 5% from 1 week prior, and utilization is 100%, showing 100% of the available shares to short are currently out. And like I said, there is some things more so next week going to cause a little bit more frustration among investors and a lot of volatility. And we all know tentatively it is going to be on March the 16th, the Fed meeting. So they're going to tentatively make a decision on whether they're going to be increasing rates and how much. Consensus right now is around 0.5%. Arguably, if it does go to 0.25% and they do surprise us with it going lower, a lot of stocks, more specifically as well, SoFi is going to go up big time. So that's something for us as investors just to keep in mind. And right now, if it does stay in line with the 0.5%, then I do strongly feel even in that regard, SoFi already has that built into the price along with other growth stocks. But over and above the interest rate fear, there is a lot of other fears that's starting to escalate. More specifically, Russia. So Russia situations is causing a little bit more of an economic ripple across the globe. And you can even see right now, Russia in itself could go through a deep recession, which is ultimately the main goal that a lot of the sanctions that were placed on it for it to actually happen. But like I said, it is causing a lot of ripples across the whole globe, and more specifically BlackRock. BlackRock funds did lose roughly about 17 billion due to Russian exposure, and Russia exposure has only been around about 3 or 4 weeks. So given that it's been 17 billion, that is a big sum. That's why they're saying that it's just the tip of the iceberg. Also, Western banks are owed 121 billion by Russian entities, which most likely, given the circumstances, especially if they do lead into a deep recession, they are not going to get paid that back. And like I said, just going through the 13 Fs for SoFi, there is a lot of big changes that have been happening, and I'm just going to short this based on the share quantity, because when it comes to BlackRock did actually increase 63.4% in SoFi. And so ultimately, looking at their average share price, which is $15.84, and just showing you they have 22 million shares of SoFi, they are at a substantial loss. So a lot of these institutions and hedge funds are going to be facing margin calls over the upcoming weeks, especially if the volatility in the market does continue. A lot of institutions such as BlackRock are going to be forcibly closing out their positions, for instance, even in SoFi, again causing a little bit more downward pressure. So that is things for us as investors to keep in mind for next week and the coming weeks. But like I say in almost every video, that doesn't mean by any means that SoFi is worthless, or the reason why it's going down isn't necessarily justification based on its day-to-day operations. When it comes to SoFi, it is a long-term investment. There's a lot of positives, and I still do feel that 2022 will be a very strong year for SoFi. And one underlying catalyst is definitely representing themselves where no other growth stock is doing that. Its CEO is buying big time. So I'm just going to go through this. These are big catalysts. So you can see on March the 4th, 15,000 shares at $9.96. That is amazing. Not only that, March the 7th, 15,350 at $9.72. Even better. And then on top of it, March the 10th, 15,873 at $9.44. So definitely hats off to you, Noto. But over and above that, because it must be early Christmas presents or whatever it might be, you can see he even bought more on March 11th, 16,704 at $8.94. So even himself, he feels we are well below our intrinsic value, as do I. But keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, do your own due diligence. But regardless, I do strongly feel that him buying is the ultimate catalyst. That's what all of us as investors do need coming from a CEO. Them to acknowledge that we are well below our intrinsic value and that we are well overdue for a massive rally. So I like seeing this. And unfortunately, that cannot be said for a lot of other investors. And you can see on a lot of stock forums and Twitter, a lot of people are really hating on Noto. So unfortunately, that is what it is. Can't really change that. A lot of people are just upset about it going down as much as it is and has been. So again, just putting that into perspective, I'm just going to show you the chart. I'm sure you guys are all aware of it. But again, coming from an investor standpoint, so the fact that we've gone from $24 in November down to around $8.50 is a very big deal, and that in itself kills investor confidence. And myself, I really do like paying attention to what investor confidence is, especially if it does get completely killed. It won't matter if this rebounds or anything, you've lost a lot of confidence in a lot of investors. So like I said, myself as an investor, I like to always pay attention to that. And with all of that, I just want to show you some technicals and give you a good representation of what possibly could happen in the next couple of weeks. So right now I have the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Bands, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. So despite everything, number of buyers is up. So you can see that based on the momentum indicator. But again, doesn't matter if retail investors are getting in. We don't necessarily have that much power. It is a lot of the institutions and hedge funds that ultimately dictate where SoFi is going. But regardless, it definitely is good to see that retail investors are getting in. Stochastic, there is a little bit of a deviation, still red line above the black, showing a little bit more of a bearish sentiment, but we are at 13. That is ultimately low. That is insanely low. In addition to, RSI is currently at 32. And the reason why I have RSI and stochastic on there is typically a lot of algorithms from hedge funds and institutions use those two indicators for buying opportunities. So RSI typically 30 or lower and stochastic 20 or lower. So we're getting very close to a happy point. And on the actual chart, we're still lower percentile of the Bollinger Band, and unfortunately we started to go back to hugging the lower percentile, again showing a little bit more of a fear coming, a little bit more downside. So that is ultimately things for us to keep in mind, and we are well below all the moving averages. So ideally, given all the circumstances where I see this going, unfortunately I don't see the Russian situation de-escalating one bit in the next couple of weeks at least. And like I said, going back to this, even though it would be a surprise for it to be 0.25%, I do strongly feel that they are going to do the 0.5%, keeping in line with that. But especially more so their guidance, what they're going to give for the future and how many they are going to be estimating, that is going to hands down dictate what's going to happen for the rest of the market. So that's going to be a lot of volatility, especially leading up to that, and depending on what they say post meeting as well. So like I said, there is a lot of volatility, and you could follow suit on Noto, especially if you do have a long-term time horizon, even remaining possibly 2022 or 2023. These will be amazing prices. But unfortunately, a lot of retail investors think too short term and just hear nothing but negativity. They don't really like to look at the actual company and realize that company in itself is building and has a huge potential. So I strongly do feel that there is a lot of potential when it comes to SoFi, as does Noto. But keep in mind though, as far as on a technical front, we could hit a low of around $6. That is ultimately the low I do see us getting to. I know that is extremely cheap, but that is given a lot of losses, a lot of margin calls coming from institutions and hedge funds. And like I said, that could be the very much worst. Most likely not, because I strongly do feel that SoFi's value should be at $15, and we are at a substantial discount. And again, going back to this, because I keep bringing this up, this is a huge untapped catalyst that a lot of people are really just brushing underneath the rug because of the broader market and its situation right now. But the fact that Noto is actually buying 4 instances over the last several weeks is a very big deal and cannot be overlooked. But with all that though, let me know your thoughts on SoFi in the comments below. If you haven't already, smash the thumbs up and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With all that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on SoFi.